everyone, welcome to the 5th game of our rogue run. This one will be against a hunter, and this one is quite an interesting one. Really glad that we can talk about this game, because it contains an element that I like to talk about a lot on my stream, so I'll definitely bring it up when the event triggers. Now for the Mulligan, I'm gonna contradict myself a little bit from earlier, because earlier I didn't keep Spider Tank here. I'm okay keeping it against the Hunter, because I don't really want to use Barber super aggressively. I think, you know, playing a Spider Tank on turn 3 against the Hunter is perfectly fine. They do a lot of damage, you know, their hero power is only phase damage, so for me it's a little bit better here to have a solid turn 3 rather than to dagger on turn 2, Barber on turn 3. Well, looks like we're still daggering on turn 2. Our opponent didn't play a creature, or sorry, a minion into our backstab, so then we can't activate our ringleader. It's better than to preemptively dagger up. So we'll see what he goes for here. So we have a slow start, he has a slower start. Here you can see the distinct advantage of being a rogue. Having our hero power on turn 2 is okay, because it's an investment for the future, whereas if he hero powers on turn 2, you could say that it's an investment for the future. It's 2 damage. But you know, in all fairness, when we're talking in terms of board control, this dagger is 2 damage on demand, you know, separated by a turn, of course. But that 2 damage is not something that the hunter can cash in on the board at any time. So yeah, an example of why Rogue is so good right now. Now if we go into this turn, there's a couple things that we could do. We could play the Priestess and the Defiance Ringleader, or the Spider Tank. Now, because I don't have a great turn 4 lined up, I would rather play my Spider Tank here, even though it develops only 3 power and Priestess Defiance develops 6 power. It's because next turn I want to keep the flexibility of the cheaper cards. If we draw a 3-drop, I can go Priestess and 3-drop. If we draw a 2-drop, we can go Ringleader plus, well, 2-drop plus the Ringleader, etc, etc. So by using the most expensive card, we have more chance to flesh out our curve nicely next turn. Alright, and we drew another Ringleader, which is not ideal, you know. We'd much rather, you know, draw an auto Barber, you know, kill his guy, face into the little guy, play the Barber, play the Ringleader. But we do have a backstab for a combo initiator, so it's essentially like, do we want to keep a backstab, or would we rather have an extra 2-in-1 body on the board? And here I'm gonna opt for the backstab. It saves a charge on the dagger, it saves 2 health, which aren't usually arguments that I would use, but they speak in combination with getting that extra 2-in-1 from the Ringleader. So, you know, getting the extra minion, saving the dagger charge, saving 2 health, in the end contributes to us making this decision, using the backstab for tempo here, which is perfectly fine. So this is the point I want to talk about. We all know what trap that's going to be, right? We have 5 minions that die to an explosive trap, and our opponent just played an explosive trap, which is exactly what I wanted to talk about. Now, on this point, I can guarantee you that many people just attack with a Defiance Ringleader here, in case it's Freezing Trap. Say like, okay, if it's Freezing Trap, I get my Ringleader back, that's nice. Because their logic is, I don't want to damage further, I don't want to further damage any of my minions that I'm going to play. They're like, if I'm going to play my Spectral Knight here, I don't want it to get damaged by the trap, so I'm just going to attack. If we attack now, we gave the opponent a 2-mana Blizzard, essentially, damage-wise, right? A 2-mana Blizzard. Like Explosive Trap, if that was castable, if that wasn't a secret Explosive Trap and was just to deal 2 damage AoE on your opponent's board, it would be absolutely broken. The reason why it is not broken is that you, as a player, can choose when you trigger it. So don't give the hunter the broken card. I don't like Explosive Shot in the arena because of what I'm about to do. He thinks that we're going to attack, but look at how much power we have. 8 plus 3, 11 power. I'm not going to throw that away. I just want to develop the Ogre Ninja here and pass. That way, if he plays a 5-drop, I can use some of that 11 power to kill whatever he plays and then have a tempo lead on him. Because I just developed a 6 and 6. Yes, this might get damaged later on, but I'd rather have a 6 and 4 than, you know, not a 6 and 4. So tempo-wise, this is a great move. Now, why did we play the Ogre Ninja over the Spectral Knight? It's really close. Both minions would have been fine. In general, I don't want him to mess with the card that I'm about to play. So I don't want him to use a weapon on that. I don't want him to use a charge minion on that, because what I could see him do here is unleash the hounds and then send like 4 dogs into this guy and then the rest face. So that's the reason we played the Ogre rather than the Spectral Knight. Because of unleash the hounds, because of charge minions in general, because of weapons. But it was close, you know? So here he does the standard hunter move when they have the explosive trap. You know, his reasoning is, hey, I'm not going to throw away minions when you have to kill off your own guys before you can hit my face. Which is a valid reasoning. I don't think if I'm in that position I would I'm probably not going to be in that position because I don't draft explosive trap, or at least I try to avoid it. But if I'm in his position, I would probably mirror his move. But, you know, he's just digging a deeper and deeper hole for himself. Because I have a 6-6 on the table now. I can just put a 4-6 on the table now and make it even worse for him. Because I still do not have to trigger this trap. I can just build a bigger board. Now, what I could have also done here, which also wouldn't have been that bad, I could have attacked with a dude, proc the explosive trap, then deal 6 face damage, and then develop the Spectral Knight and the Young Priestess. I will have a very respectable board, and he can do so much. But I'm a bit greedier here, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna take one more turn of where I force him to hero power, because, you know, he doesn't want to play anything into all these dudes. I do give him the option to unleash the hounds on my Spectral Knight, but I'm thinking, if he had unleashed the hounds, wouldn't he have just played it here in combination with the hero power to deal 6 face damage? I think he would have. So, making a gamble here, saying, okay, you don't have unleashed the hounds. Positioning of the Spectral Knight is a little bit off. In grand scheme of things, it doesn't quite matter. Why do I say it's off? It's because an explosive shot, you usually want this knight in the middle of things, but because these things are all going to die anyway, positioning isn't super relevant here. Alright, so he still had his coin. That's something I didn't keep track of. And he had a Gladiator's Longbow. That's like one of the only cards that punishes me here. What else would punish me here? Like we said, an Unleash the Hound, but we already sniffed it out, you know. Didn't smell like Unleash. But yeah, he had a Gladiator's Longbow. Now, why is that good? He can use his face into my Spectral Knight, bring it into explosive shot range, and I'm gonna lose an additional card. But that's fine. Tempo-wise, that's fine. It's not that bad because I have the freeze in my hand. I can delay him using the weapon for 1 turn. So right now I've transitioned from being in a value point of view towards a temp. Like I just want, like, we're not going to win this game on value anymore because I just lost a Spectral Knight, a Spider Tank, and 2 Defias ringleaders. That's 4 cards to 1 explosive trap. Now, granted, he did use half his Gladiator's Longbow, and the Spider Tank did get some value on his Harvest Golem, etc. But still, a very favorable trade. Now we do connect for 6. We freeze his face to disable his weapon, and we develop the Young Priestess. So, tempo-wise, we're in a great spot. If you look at this is the end of our turn 7. I have 6-4, 5-5, 2-1, and I'm gonna get another health buff. So there is no way that for 7 mana he can develop a better board than this. So tempo-wise, we're in a great spot. Value-wise, of course, if you look at his hand, that's looking rather scary. I have a Zombie Charm and a Twilight Drake. So I'm gonna have to close this game out fairly fast. But that's okay, right? Cards in your hand don't matter until you're at the point where you can't really spend the mana anymore. Unfortunately, he had his own Frost Elemental here, a great tempo play, because it disables my card for a turn, and he gets to develop a 5/5. Where you point the Ogre is really irrelevant. It is a 50-50, so we trade it. I feel like that's a decent outcome. I don't think I would have liked his face to kill my Ogre, seeing as he would get it for free. On the other hand, it would have been 6 extra face damage, so not super relevant. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and develop the Twilight Drake here. Hit with our face because we can Redagger anyway, and put down the Amani Berserker. Here the positioning is relevant, so let me talk about it for just a second. We're putting our 2 weak minions in the middle, and that is not by chance. We're doing it for explosive shot. So if he explosive shots, you generally want to drop the 5 damage onto a high health minion. Let's say I had placed the priestess on an outside, on an edge. Let's say the Drake was in the middle, and then the elemental and the priestess were next to it. You can just explosive shot the Drake, kill the priestess, and damage the elemental. Whereas now, I guess he could kill the Amani and the priestess, but then I still keep my Drake. So we're trying to make the explosive shot as bad as possible for him. So, okay. And we're not going to play Zombie Chow yet, seeing as I'd rather Redagger than give him an extra potential Hound if he had drawn it. Also, I don't want to give him extra health at this moment, because we have to chase him down. He has so many cards on us that at this point we need to close out the game in a couple turns, otherwise we're going to be in a very bad spot. So he uses his weapon, once again, you know, he has a great deck, a great value-oriented deck. He goes a bit YOLO here with a Deadly Shot with a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and a 6-drop. I guess he was aiming for the 6-drop, but the wind blew it off a little bit and hit the 1-drop instead. Very grateful for that. I think if he got lucky with his Deadly Shot here, we probably would have just lost on the spot. Whereas now we still are in a reasonable position. You know, we have decent power on the board. Right, our opponent makes kind of a weird play here. He Hunter's Marks preemptively. Essentially, what does that mean, that Hunter's Mark? It essentially means that he doesn't have anything to deal with our big guy, and he's like, I just don't want your 5 damage to go into my face, and you using your Amani and your face into my Cobra. But because of this Sabotage draw, it's gonna be even worse. Also, Sabotage, where were you when you had the expensive bow on, man? That would have been amazing, you know? Zombie Chow, Sabotage, pff, bow gone, GG. Anyways, still in a really good spot here. We can use our Amani and our face into the Mech Warper, give us a 5-1, another 5-1, and a Sabotage. The reason why I'm not afraid of going 5-1 and 5-1 is that if he had Multi-Shot or Arcane Shot, he would have used it, instead of just sacrificing his board, if he had a Hunter's Mark. But we could just basically smell the desperation from his play by that preemptive Hunter's Mark. He just really didn't want to take the 5 damage. Because, you know, his deck is pretty good, pretty value-oriented, and he just wants to stay alive for a couple more turns to close out the game. Because the guy with more cards is obviously going to benefit a lot more from more mana than the guy with little cards. As you see now, even with hero powering, we are floating 2 mana. So you can feel the effect of running out of cards now. Whereas our opponent is going full steam ahead. You know, he has a Ysera, so this guy is obviously in the control point. Betrayal is a pretty dead draw here, which means we're only going to spend 10 mana. Sorry, we're only going to spend 2 mana out of the 10. But we just have to go full face here. If we clean up that Ysera, he's got 5 cards, one of them's a dream card, he's going to draw an extra card. It would be 6 cards versus 1. Absolutely no chance to win if you clear the Ysera here. You have to put everything in his face now and say, okay, can you stop me from killing you next turn? Yes or no. It's just the move, or rather the pace of the game that we limited ourselves to the moment he had that great explosive trap. When someone gets so much value out of a play like that, it's just not logical to say, okay, you just got a ton of value, I'm gonna try to outvalue you from this moment. That doesn't make so much sense. Even if your opponent is a hunter, typically not a value-oriented class, it's gonna be really hard to get more cards than him if he has Ysera and just kill like 4 cards with his explosive trap. So yeah, we'll see here if he can prevent the lethal. He only has 2 health and we've got a bunch of damage on the table. If he had killed the Zombie Chow, he would have prevented 7 damage. Or rather, he would have gained 5 health and then prevented 2, so that's +7, whereas if he kills a 5 damage minion, that's only +5. However, it wouldn't have mattered. We can see that he couldn't deal with our card anyway, so that means we had 8 damage ready. The +2 health would have only put him to 7, so he would have still been dead. So yeah, there we go. We closed out the game nicely, even though he had the great beat with the Gladiator's Longbow. So I'd say nice game, really good to display how to play around an explosive trap. And yeah, that was it for the 5th game, guys. I'll catch you all on the 6th game.